The next Lee and Ian podcast is approaching the station. Please step aside.
And welcome to a very special edition of the Lee and Ian Show. I'm Lee Navlin.
And I'm Ian Grodman.
The Lee and Ian Show is sponsored by Grodman Law and Mediation. Remember, when it comes to divorce, family first, your children first. Mediation, it's the way to go. Grodman Law and Mediation.
Thank you, Lee.
You're welcome, Ian. And Ian, by the way, if you want to check out my latest, it's LeeNavlinBooks.com. When I'm not recording a podcast, I'm writing some really funny books, according to my mother. That's LeeNavlinBooks.com.
I think they're funny, too.
Thank you very much. But my mother has made it clear I have to mention her.
She's your biggest fan.
She is my biggest fan. As a matter of fact, even if these books were terrible, she would tell me that. I would say, hey, what do you think of the book? And she would be, oh, it was, yeah, you want to go to lunch? I mean, she would
Got
always,
it.
Yeah, but no, she actually did love them. So, and I know you did too. And
I did.
So many people did. On Amazon, the new book I have has a 4.8. 4.8. Yeah, I got some 90, 100 reviews, something like that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's a really good, really good start. So I'm very, very pleased with that.
I'm happy to hear that.
Ian, you know, as I said at the top of the show, this is a very special edition of the Lee and Ian Show podcast. The reason it's a special edition is because this week there was an interesting video that was released by one of the Maplewood Democratic candidates for office, Martin Ceperley?
Correct.
Okay, I'm saying his name correctly. I apologize. Everybody knows I have issues with last names.
You pronounced this one correctly.
Martin Ceperley. Now, he sent out a video. Now, a little background. I had reached out to Martin and his campaign manager when we decided that we would like to cover the Maplewood Democratic Committee elections.
Right.
Especially since
it's the primary for the Maplewood Township Committee election.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, the primary, right. So
Yep.
this would be we're talking about June, right? The June.
Right.
Okay, so
the June primary.
now what got us charged up is we had 3 candidates running for 2 seats.
Which is great.
Martin Ceperley, Mayor Victor Luca, and of course we've got Sully.
John Sullivan,
John
right?
Sullivan, yes.
There's nothing better than a contested election. It's a good thing.
Exactly right. So basically, Martin never got back to me. His campaign manager didn't get back to me. He says, oh, you know, those things happen, you know.
Right. We've had a couple of people who didn't want to be on the podcast, and that's fine.
Yeah, or sometimes they just missed the mail or the note.
Right.
Plus, we had just finished up interviewing a Congress
Now,
person.
Congresswoman, yes.
Congresswoman Mejia. Mejia. There we go again.
Analilia Mejia.
I'm so proud of her, by the way. For I saw her get sworn in, and
great.
and we were just interviewing her like a couple days ago, and here
That's
she
right.
is. She's on the, that was like
shaking things up in Congress already.
Yeah, now and congratulations to her, and of course, she was funny on our podcast because I said it's like Groundhog Day. She's like, yeah, absolutely. She's like, I'm gonna be back.
That's it.
She's like, hi everybody, I gotta go
start all over again.
I'll see you. I gotta go my campaign.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. But best of luck to her. May she represent the 11th district with passion and with greatness.
And we know she will.
And she will. Yes, I think she will. Yeah. And again, she was like salt of the earth, down to earth. She was lovely.
She's one of the most real people I've ever met or running for elected office.
She was, even before we went to air. We had her on the Zoom, and she was funny. She's having trouble with her hearing with her headphone. And she kept taking it off, putting it on the other ear, putting it back on the other. And it's funny. I'm thinking, here's a woman that the whole country is talking about right now.
Right, it's true.
Yeah, and she's she's like,
all eyes on New Jersey.
Yeah. But that's just again, sometimes we see these people as nothing but politicians. But the nice thing is when we interviewed all those candidates,
they're real people.
They're really all they're real people. The guy that does the Trump impersonations, J.L. Cobbin, funny
and
guy.
He had some great idea. Like, I did not honestly take him seriously at first, but he had some fantastic ideas.
J.L. Cobbin, right?
Yep.
And they just of course Lieutenant Governor Way. I mean,
yeah, she was amazing.
She was cool. She was like this cool person,
Absolutely.
She knew more about the football Giants and Jets than I did.
Well, she's got quite a connection there too.
That's right. Her husband used to play, but normally people don't know more about that stuff than me.
Okay, all right.
As a matter of fact, Ian, if this were an NFL podcast instead of what we're doing, I think we'd have millions of listeners because of my vast knowledge of.
All right. Well, maybe that's the next chapter.
Yeah, but I'm a Jets fan, so I'm better off not talking about football.
Okay.
But anyway, back to my point.
Back to politics.
Yes, right. So I had reached out to Martin's camp, including Martin personally, I didn't hear back. Then all of a sudden a video appears. Martin likes to make videos. It's part of his campaigning. He's videotaping himself, riding a bike or walking, and that's fine. This is how he wants to campaign.
Mm-hmm.
But the video kind of took, rather than come to us, he went ahead and he announced that he had been invited to the podcast, but he wasn't coming on because he doesn't like me for a variety of reasons that went unchecked. Because if you say something about somebody because you've heard it through the grapevine, come to the person and say, is this true?
I think that's the best way to go. Yep.
And he could have said, some of the things he said about me were just complete. Like, for instance, he said that I founded the Facebook group Soma Talks. That I was not the founder of Soma Talks. I was never the moderator of Soma Talks. That was run by a different group of people. I posted on the site occasionally. I post on Soma Dads. I post on like anybody else, the advertising site. So that was just an incorrect assumption.
Right.
Little things. If you'd reached to me, Martin, I would have told you that's not true. And then you would have said, okay, good, I don't need to use that in the video. That's correct. But instead, you made a mistake. You said something that was incorrect. You were wrong. Martin also said there was an incident between his campaign manager, Jessica James, who is active in the local political scene, and myself, where I threatened to run her out of town and threatened to sue her. Again, that's just not accurate. But, Martin, there was a cease and desist letter sent by my attorney to Jessica. Okay, that's much different than what you said. Again, come to me. You'll hear my version. You've heard her version. There are two sides to every coin. And these are the type of things you want to do before you send out a video. Also, there were some images on the video that Martin included, but he did so without context. To make matters worse, most of them were not posted by me. Again, blatant misinformation. Okay, blatant misinformation, especially when one of them was a Nazi hate symbol. So again, misrepresenting what's being said for whatever reason. Now, this is what my old boss might have called sloppy journalism. But he also talked about some things, Ian, regarding the Maplewood Democratic Committee.
Correct.
That really were a little bit above my head. He kind of indicates he's running as an outsider because he was never given a fair shake.
Anybody who wants to. So what people don't know, people should know, right? Because the Maplewood Democratic Committee, we put the word out there about what we're doing and what we do on all sorts of different media. We have a newsletter that we send out. We have a website. We're on social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We also post things in the Village Green. So we put information out there all the time.
That you're taking applications for?
Well, that's it. For the last several years, for all of this talk about the county line, the Maplewood Democratic Committee has been pushing for reform in democratic politics in the state of New Jersey for years. And one of the things that we started doing when we were getting pushback beyond Maplewood is we said, let's see what we can do right here in Maplewood. So what we did is we worked to make sure that anybody who was going to be running for the Township Committee in the Democratic primary in Maplewood would all be on the same line. And we've been doing that now for several years. What we used to endorse two people if there were going to be two open seats and one person if there's going to be one open seat.
Okay.
What we started doing is we decided within our committee that anybody who the Maplewood Democratic Committee, made up of 42 elected district leaders, elected by the public, felt was qualified, would be endorsed by the committee. So we could have 10 people running that are endorsed by the Maplewood Democratic Committee.
For 2 seats, let's say.
For 2 seats. And the bar is not particularly high to do that. If 40% of the committee feels that the person is qualified, we will endorse them. So we have had a few times in the last couple of years where we've had more than the open number of seats, people who've been endorsed by the Maplewood Democratic Committee. This year, we only had 2 people come to us who were interested in doing it. The committee
that would
overwhelmingly...
be Vic and John
Luca
Sullivan.
and John Sullivan. The committee overwhelmingly believed that both were qualified, and we voted to endorse them.
Okay, so Martin was not endorsed because, well, he didn't get his application in on time,
Well,
is that correct, or am I wrong there? Or?
as far as I'm aware, and all of this comes to me directly as the chair.
Yeah.
We never received an application from him.
So he basically, so he didn't apply for the job, so to speak.
Well, I mean, he's applied for the job because he submitted a petition by the deadline
to run
in order to run.
Right, to run without the endorsement.
But he did not submit an application to be endorsed by the Maplewood Democratic Committee, which, by the way, we asked for those applications to come in 3 weeks before the filing deadline. And the reason we do that is we interview each one of these people who are seeking our endorsement. We do that in a public meeting. We are the only municipal committee possibly in the state of New Jersey that does that invites the public in as we interview these people. We want to make sure there's enough time for the people to come in, to be prepared for the interview, to go through the interview process, and then we vote to whether it's basically a yes or no. Do we endorse them? It's not we pick two people because there's two seats.
Right.
It's everybody who comes before us. It's either a yes or no. You will be endorsed. Everybody who we endorse and everybody who runs in Maplewood only, running for Township Committee, will be on the same line on the ballot.
And that's a 40% endorsement, 40% of the district leaders.
Finding that the applicant is qualified, they will be endorsed.
And the public can
the public can't vote.
Yeah, but they could watch and
they could sit in on that meeting where we interview, and we have allowed members of the public to ask questions of the people who are running or seeking the endorsement.
So if I wanted to, I wouldn't have to like dig a hole in the wall and check it out with like a little eye hole or whatever to be
Not
like.
at all. I mean, there's a perception among some people that this is some big secret, going on. It is not at all.
Well, that's the impression that he seemed, I believe, on this video that he shared, which again took kind of a thrust a little bit that he was indicating. But so it's an open situation. He could have applied for a potential chance to get the endorsement, and so in theory,
and that announcement was sent out
weeks ahead of time.
The Village Green, on our website, in our newsletter. The Facebook page, the Instagram page.
I mean, I see it all over the place. On Facebook, I constantly am bombarded with Maplewood Democratic Committee is taking applications. And, I'm always proud when I see it because I'm like, there's my guy.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah. So, and that's different than years ago because when I ran back in 2010 or 11,
different, right.
So if I had run now, maybe because I didn't get the endorsement last time.
So I'm fairly certain.
Do you think I would have gotten the endorsement last time? And this was it.
If you ran this, if you sought the endorsement this time, I'm pretty certain that 40% of our committee would have found that you were qualified.
All right,
that's what we're looking at. Is this person qualified to be on the township committee?
And it comes down to, again, do you have the time to show up to make be at the meetings?
Big thing is that people don't realize the amount of time that goes into serving on the township committee.
Now, the video, again, he kind of also indicated that maybe you and Vic were, since you had been giving Vic 30 years of doing this, you 20 years of doing this, that perhaps maybe you guys were in the way of the new young guns that are, hard charging and ready to take over, Maplewood. And, I was, frankly, I was a little offended by that. To me, it's, take Bernie Sanders. Hey, Bernie, you're doing a great job in the Senate, but you got to go.
Old. You
shouldn't be there anymore. Go away. Experience now is a negative. So I was not happy with that.
To some people, that is. To some people, they believe that there should be a turnover. I personally don't. I think when you look at Vic DeLuca. And this, no disrespect to anybody else who's been the mayor in Maplewood, because I think everybody who has served in Maplewood has been fantastic. I've been living in Maplewood now for 30 years.
Yeah.
Vic is the best mayor that we've ever had, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people would agree with me. To say that he should be stepping down because he's been there for 30 years, I just don't understand that at all.
Or that he's in the way. For instance, Vic made a speech when he was just elected mayor in, last year, I guess, right? And his speech, I just happened to be looking at the speech. Here's his speech. He talks about 250 single-family homes sold last year on an average 18 days on the market compared to 32 days on the market of Essex County. 2025, the township issued 1,800 building permits representing more than $31 million in construction costs. Over 10 months of 20 2025, crime fell by 33% in Maplewood. I mean, the township, the health department is moving. You know, this is what he's talking.
And he's also talking about far more progressive issues than the economy also.
Yeah, but he's just a man of fact, a man of knowledge, and he absolutely
a man of getting the job
done. So he doesn't talk about, hey, aren't I great? Look what I've done. Look what I've accomplished. Look at my.
He's not like that at all.
No, he just talks about the facts of what happened.
That's right.
You know,
that's a good point. I'm sorry, I misunderstood where you were going.
Yeah, that's where I was just basically trying to go. That you know, and these are the type of people that you want in office because A, they're experienced.
That's who I want.
B, they tell you what's going on.
Right.
Now, every candidate, by the way, Ian, that runs, when I ran, I remember I told you years ago, you know, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, you know, and I was new. And, you know, by the way, you know, I'm not saying Martin doesn't know what he's doing, but he's new, and I was new, and it was your first time doing something, and you
Martin has been involved in some issues in town that, you know, he does have some ideas for things that could be done to improve the town. And he's been involved in those ideas, and he's been an effective advocate on those ideas.
Yeah, like the bike lanes, and you know, I know he wants this bus to go from St. James Gate to the Arties or what. The bus loop. But anyway, perhaps that's important to some people. But what I'm getting is when I was inexperienced as a candidate, I reached out to someone who was experienced as a candidate, and I said, what do I do? And she goes, well, you need a platform.
Right.
And I said, well, what's my platform? She's like, well, what's your biggest strength? I go, communication. She goes, transparency. You know, so I said, oh, okay. So I ran around saying, transparent. I see the same thing coming.
Everybody talks about transparency.
Right, everyone talks about, and that seems to be the kind of the new kid on the block, transparency. But there is transparency on the Maplewood Democratic.
So I will say that having been involved in local politics now for 20 years, having spoken to people in other towns, in other counties, in other parts of the state, people are amazed by the level of transparency that we have at the Maplewood Democratic Committee, the level of involvement where everybody is included in all decisions that are made. It's shocking to me. Somebody told me, you know, when I moved to Maplewood 30 years ago, you know, I was not involved in politics at that time. The Maplewood Democratic Committee, the chair would basically pick who the candidates were going to be. That certainly has changed a lot.
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, really. So what I'm seeing here is, and by the way, John Sullivan, every time I see him, he's out campaigning, handing out signs, handing out literature,
he's
talking.
Doing a great job.
You know,
somebody who's running for the first time, he's really doing a great job.
But he's been involved with Maplewood politics behind the scenes for so many years.
John has been a district leader in the Maplewood Democratic Committee for years. He's on the planning board. He's on the Maplewood Foundation. He was the president of the Hilton Neighborhood Association. You're absolutely right. He's been very, very involved. He knows what's going on in town. He's a smart guy who's an attorney. He's got a lot to offer.
What he's not doing, John Sullivan, for instance, he's not saying, hey, that podcast is bad news, which is basically what that video indicated. Instead, I'm reading what he wants to do. He wants to strengthen public safety through smart coordination, maintain fiscal responsibility, support local businesses, investing in infrastructure. These are platforms.
Right.
This is what the voter wants to hear. When again, going back to me, when I knocked on doors years ago, I kind of did this as a lark. You know, I had to.
I remember.
Yeah, I want to see what it's like. I want to, be popular. I make friends. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking.
You don't run for elected office to be popular.
No,
that's for sure.
Right, exactly right. Maybe less popular, less liked. But I knocked on a woman's door, and I'll never forget this. I knocked on her door, and I'm like, "Hi, I'm Lena. I'm running," and she started to cry.
You told me this story before.
She told me that she was losing the house.
Yep.
She had lost her job. Her husband had died. Her kids were still in the school, and she didn't know what to do. And she basically asked me, she's like, I'll vote for you if you can tell me what to do.
Right.
And I didn't know what to do, and I just promised her if I got elected, I would never not take her phone call. I would never not try.
That is the best thing you can do as an elected official.
And I knocked on hundreds of doors, and, I guess it was a few years back, but, that to me, Victor Luke is still knocking on doors.
Absolutely.
Sullivan is knocking on doors. Candidates, videos are great, but getting in front of voters is the most important thing. And ultimately, I think, when you make statements, talk to the person you're making the statement about.
I as a mediator, I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, right. That's right. You're a mediator. Yeah, and I just felt like look, you could say anything you want about me. I'm a podcaster. I'm out there.
Right. You've been known to be a hothead occasionally in the past.
I lose my temper like anybody else, but
Right.
you know what? I'm a Jersey guy. I got a lot to say, but ultimately,
That's why you and Annalilya got along so well.
Yeah, but ultimately,
Jersey girl.
Right? I would never say something about someone without at least meeting them first.
Right.
I wouldn't say, gosh, that Ian Grodman. I never met the guy, but I hear he's a terrible actor. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because then you would have said, hey, what are you talking about? I won these acting awards. I studied acting when I was a young man before going to law school.
Yeah.
For instance.
Right. Well, and that's, again, that's another part of this job that I'm doing as the chair of the Maplewood Democratic Committee. Anybody who's an elected official, you've got all of these people who are always making these assumptions and these drawing these conclusions, which are often based on nothing. And sometimes, there's an ulterior motive, to say things about people that, let's just say may not be quite true. I so agree with you that we have some new toys here in the so here's one of them. Look at that. Oh,
Look at that. Yeah.
Nice.
So it's Ian Grodman, ladies and gentlemen. Ian
We're
Grodman.
stepping it up here.
And the winner of the 2010 Actors Award at the LA Web Fest is...
What year was that?
I think, no, it was later than that, like 2019 or 20.
19, 20? Okay, yeah.
I forgot.
Yes, I was the best supporting actor at the LA Web Series Festival. It was a very exciting night for me. Thank you.
Yes, it was a very exciting night for both of us.
Yes, it was. You had quite a few awards yourself there.
I did. Thank you for that. Yeah, it was. We've partnered up in many ventures, and I really do consider you my best friend. And,
that's very kind.
But we're different people.
We are very different.
You're
people.
much more progressive than I am. I think.
I think that's a good statement.
I'm a Democrat my whole existence. I ran as a Democrat. I vote Democrat. But again, getting back to this video, he indicated that I was a Republican, some type of Republican.
I think there was a mention about right wing.
Right wing,
I wouldn't know about Republican,
right wing, yeah, and it's. It's just a word, but I find it insulting, because it's not true.
Not. I don't think it was intended to be a compliment.
Right,
so.
right. Choice. Trans rights, gay rights. I mean, these are things
You're
that
a big proponent.
Big proponent, always have been. And a woman's right to choose and. Immigration. I was telling you earlier, my parents worked, when I was growing up. They're both,
We've talked a lot about immigration on this podcast.
Yeah, and they would come home and they were hard workers. And my father would always say to me, if that hard work, my father would say, hey, if someone's willing to work, Lee, he's like, that's the person that you support and you defend and. So I've just always, to me, anybody who wants to come to the United States and work and succeed,
Well, so much of the work that I have done in my career as an attorney is as an immigration attorney. And I have a real soft spot, for people who are trying to make a better life for themselves in this country. My grandparents came to this country. My mother was the daughter of immigrants and was raised, as a first-generation American. We've all been in that position. You and I have had other experts on immigration on the podcast as well, and it's an issue it is near and dear to my heart, and I think it is to yours as well. I have a different kind of connection, but it's something that's been very important to us. And what's happening in this country right now is absolutely horrendous. And with everything else going on in the world, people are forgetting that ICE is still out there. ICE is still arresting people. ICE is still shaking people down in the street without due process. It's just been unbelievable. And it's something that all of us should still be talking about.
Again, I just wanted to clarify. I was, again, taken back. I would not normally have a problem with somebody sharing something about, me if you had just come to me and said, is this true?
Right.
he didn't.
Well, can I ask you about this?
Can I-
And we know I've done that with you,
Yeah, right,
Because there are
right.
some things that people have said about you that I had concerns about, and I've asked you about them.
Right. So instead, Martin, I invited you on the show. You didn't get back to me, and instead you went ahead and said, you're not going to come on my show because I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. Lee Navin is this, and this. You used my name half a dozen times. It was inappropriate. You shouldn't have done it. And you know what?
And Ian is this and this and this, too.
And Ian is this and this and this. And you know what? And I've had plenty of people in town come to me and say, "Hey, you okay? You all right with that?" I was really bothered by that, and I just want to make sure you're not bothered. I said, you know what? I said, it comes with the territory.
Well, that's probably the healthiest way to look at it, because I had a lot of people reach out to me as well. And, some of them, one of them just recently practically crying about the things that were being said about me.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm sorry that you feel so emotional about it. You can't be, right? Like, that's just kind of the nature of the beast. And some people who get involved in politics are willing to go a little overboard.
And this just goes again with the territory. You look at comments, which you should never look at comments. And some people on some of these comments, they don't like me, they don't like whatnot. I seem to be a lightning rod at times. Someone had said to me, you had said some disparaging words about women of color, and which wasn't true. And I just want to clarify what happened there.
Okay, go
Ian.
ahead.
Okay, so
I'm glad you are.
yeah, Jane was running for office. Jane, who's on the township
Correct.
committee now, who was doing a wonderful job.
She's doing an amazing job. She's a great friend. I'm thrilled that she's there.
And she may have had one of the hardest campaigns. The reason I say this is because Max Kravitz, young man, I never saw anybody work that way. I mean, this kid.
He worked very
and
hard,
he's a kid.
and he still does.
And he's still working. This kid is going places. He was knocking on doors every single day. He went on podcasts. He got him to Mary Mann. I think Mary Mann was even joking. She's like, when the phone rings, I know it's Max. But he was really working hard to get elected. So I had just written. I go, he is really working hard. He's out hustling. Everybody. And I had simply said, that Jane, this is an important election. I had written maybe, it's going to be harder. It's more hard fought than perhaps you anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
This kid is bringing his A game. They tried to
I think you said you have to say you said something like she's got to step up her game.
You got to step up her game,
Right.
And that was I was accused of disparaging women of color because I said that. In other words, it was because she's a woman of color. No, it was because her opponent was
doing an incredibly hard-working job.
right, and and Jane has a career and she's got to work and she's got other things.
She's got children,
she's got
and family,
children,
and all of that.
Right, so
it was maybe a little bit easier for Max.
So that was it. So I just want to clarify that. So anyone who sees that comment underneath, because I argued with the woman about that, and that was
Thank you for explaining that.
right. So but that's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
I don't. Some of these negative comments, I don't know if they're boardroom decisions. Hey, we're going to go after this podcast. Who's willing to step up and say some rude things about the?
We'll never know.
The host, right? But again, I just want to clear my name up a little bit.
Yeah.
Martin, now I think because I'm sure you're going to listen to this, I think you have a better understanding of who I am. But again, getting back to the committee.
Right, getting back to the Maplewood Democratic Committee, right? And, and certainly some of the things that have been said about me recently have been very upsetting. But what's more upsetting is the disparaging comments about a committee that I have worked very, very hard on for many, many years. And, when people talk about reforming the Democratic Party, the Maplewood Democratic Committee has been a leader in reform for many, many years. Like I talked about before, we were the first municipality to have everybody running for township committee on the same line. And again, if 40% of the committee felt that you were a worthy candidate, you would be endorsed by the party. By the local Democratic Committee, I should say, to run for the primary for Township Committee. We were advocates for the Essex County Democratic Committee to have a convention for many, many years. That has finally started happening over the course of the last year and a half. And I do believe that the Maplewood Democratic Committee can rightfully claim a lot of the credit for making that happen.
Excellent.
We have the Essex County Democratic Committee. There was a big push by the Maplewood Democratic Committee and other committees to amend the bylaws for the Essex County Democratic Committee, which hadn't been done in like 25 or 30 years. We made sure that somebody from Maplewood was on that committee as checks and balances, but also to make sure that we were pushing through and we were having a voice at the table for making sure that those changes were getting done. We were the first committee to say that we're not going to have Democratic Party district leaders identified as male or female, which was, from the dark ages that people were identified as a male district leader or a female district leader. We said that's not going to be the case anymore because it's not necessary to do that. Also, it doesn't take into account people who don't identify as male or female.
So you have 42 district leaders currently.
Correct.
And once upon a time, it was 21 men, 21 women back in the Stone Age.
That was the way it was required to be under the law.
Under the law. So how does it work now?
So now anybody who wants to run for district leader can.
42 of them.
42. So right now we have one more man than women, but next year we're probably going to have more women than men.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And we have one district leader who is transgender.
Okay. How do you run for district leader? How does that work?
Same as running for anything else. You get a petition from town hall. You have to get fewer names on the petition to run. You have to get 10 people to sign that are registered Democrats that live in your district.
In your district.
And you will be on the ballot to run for district leader. I mean, that deadline has passed for this year, but that will happen again in 2 years. It happens every 2 years during the Democratic primary that you could run to be a district leader in the Democratic Party.
Gotcha. All right, so that's great. So, if a married gay couple wanted to both be district leaders, they could both be district leaders.
They could be.
So it wasn't essential. 20 years ago, it would have been like, well, no, one of you has to figure out which one it's going to be.
That's right. And, some other things that we've done, like a lot of people were concerned about elected officials being district leaders, and we were not able to reach consensus on that. But the consensus that we did reach was that somebody who is an elected official cannot be on the executive committee of the Maplewood Democratic Committee. So while we have actually right now all of our township committee members are district leaders, none of them are on the executive committee for the Maplewood Democratic Committee. Wonderful.
I mean, it's very interesting. It's just, it's such a... Now, I know Maplewood better because I lived in Maplewood many years, but, there's so much opportunity to run for an office, win a seat, have a voice.
There's so much opportunity. It's hard work, especially to run for township committee. A lot of people are not aware of the amount of time and intellectual capacity sometimes that you have to have because of the things that you're working on to do it. And that's one of the reasons that we started having these workshops every year, right? I think very few towns do that. There probably are a few others that do. Yeah. But we have a workshop every year for anybody who's interested in running for township committee so that they can learn what it means to run and they can learn what it means to serve. Yeah. We also do the same thing for people who are interested in running for and serving as a Democratic Party district leader. And our main role as Democratic Party district leaders is to get Democrats elected. That is the main objective.
That's
that
the main
we have
objective.
As district leaders.
And by the way, once upon a time, when I was just talking to a friend of mine who lives in town, Maplewood, for 30 years. He said when he got Mayor Grassmere was the mayor.
Mayor Grassmere was the mayor for 20 some odd years.
He was a Republican.
Maplewood.
The whole party, the whole township committee was Republican. You had an organized Democratic committee.
Probably as recently as maybe like 35 years ago.
So he was Ellen Davenport. Was Ellen. He said was kind of leading the charge and saying, hey, our voice matters too here in this community.
Ellen Davenport, Jerry Ryan,
yeah. And so that's that's what it's about. It's about making sure that the Democrats have liberal, progressive policies in place in a community that, as we're learning under Donald Trump, when you don't have.
That's right. I mean, we talk a lot. So again, when sometimes I take a little personal offense when people talk about running as Reform Democrats.
Yeah.
The Maplewood Democratic Committee has been working hard to reform the Democratic Party for years. And now I forgot where I was going with this. What were we saying?
You're just talking about running for the Democratic Committee, running for years. It was.
I lost my train of thought.
Lost your train of thought. You know what, Ian?
Oh, thank you.
That's right. But I think, I gotta wait. I gotta wait for the applause. And it's on like a loop.
You know, part of my problem is that I am. Well, I'm not one to pat myself on the back, and I think some of what the misperceptions that might be out there right now are because I don't toot my own horn about the things that we've accomplished.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate the fact that we can talk about a lot of these things on the podcast today.
Well, no, that's exactly it, Ian. There are, there are, you joke around on this. You tell people, oh, Lee's, the Howard Stern, I'm the Robin, or
the Robin Quivers.
When we did Goodstein, you would always joke, Lee's the star, and I'm his sidekick.
I was the supporting actor.
Yeah, and
yes.
you know what? I think you say those things just because you. When I said, do you want to do a web series with me? You said, I'd love to do a web series with you, Lee. And it was a lot of work for you, and weekends away your job. If somebody comes to you and said, Ian, would you help me? I'd like you to be involved. It's very hard for you to say no, even if you're not going to be. Admittedly,
it is very difficult.
Even if you're not going to be the guy, with the standing in the middle with the gold medal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I take umbrage too when people come after you as being anything other than just the guy that has given the better part of his adult life to this community, to the Democrats of this community, to his neighbors, to his friends, and I know Victor Luca feels that same way. I know Jerry Ryan, the late Jerry Ryan, felt that way. These are, Ellen Davenport. These are all people that love you because,
that's very kind.
You're the guy that at the end of the day, it says, I'll get it done. I'll get it done.
That's it. I'll do what I can.
I'll do what I can.
Right.
Yeah. So may the politics continue.
There we go.
Good night.
Good night.